you're not following or subscribing to Copyblogger, Copyblogger, fix that. He's excellent on, and although he writes for copywriters on a professional basis, it's great for bloggers. Okay, so some of their tips that I'm copying here that really work well. Use short, imperative calls to action. Please don't say, please retweet this. Right? Tell them to retweet this. Tell them to buy the book. Right? Don't be nice. Nice is nice for family gatherings. Be imperative. Most email subject lines from a blog will also inherit the blog's title. At least they should do. Okay? Make sure that you write your blog's title, if you think about SEO, keyword rich and short, on a mobile device. On my old BlackBerry Storm, okay, in portrait mode, there are 35 characters of subject line visible, basically. Right? You've got to get your hook in the first 35 characters of the subject line. That's really, it makes a tweet look like an essay. Right? 35 characters. The same for blog posts. If you can write a compelling book in 35 to 60 characters, they're going to engage with emails, and your blog post will actually be more effective, and you'll get great SEO out of it. Finally, if you're telling people that when they read this, they're going to get why, okay? Don't make them read through 1,000 words of other stuff before you get to why, right? Deliver on the promise you're making in the subject line. There's nothing worse than being made to walk through the whole store to get to the milk at the back, right? Don't do that to your readers. Get to the point, fulfill the promise you're making in the subject line and with your headlines. Call to actions, by the way, don't have 15 different calls to action in the same post. Don't ask them to do 15 different things, right? Brian Clark, a Copyblogger, says basically have two. Give them one, and if they don't like that, I'll give them the other one. They then should choose. So maybe two. My father, he did a project for the Undertaking Association in the UK. And one of the things they had a problem was that people were choosing really cheap caskets, right? Because they listed them in price order. Cheapest first, then next, the next. Well, you can't give the little pine box to Uncle Jim. That looks cheap. We'll go down a couple, right? All they did was they flipped it around. The most expensive one on the top. And that kind of the gold-plated handles. Oh, nice, solid oak. Yeah, okay, I'll do that. ASP through the roof. If you have choices of multiple calls to action, think about how you're presenting them in the post to get what you want, the value you want from those readers. And all this advice I'm talking about email, it's really good for your regular website, right? Everything is bloggable, everything is mailable. We know this from the newspapers, right? People are not interested in the 500 billion people who sat down and had dinner and got up the next morning, right? Nasty is what sells newspapers. People are wired to go, oh, it's interesting, what happened, right? Be controversial, be negative. It's creepy, but the t-shirt I'm wandering around with, right, is, are you wasting your blog's most precious resource? I want you to stop and think about the question, am I? But what is my precious resource? I want to get you thinking, I want to get you engaged, and then ask me the question, right? I want you to think, bring that somewhere. Also, you'll see a lot of tweets from people like Darren Rouse and Brian Clark, and the really power bloggers are all 3 tips this, 5 hints that, 7 tips the other. Short, low numbers really work well in terms of getting people to go, oh, I could use 3 tips to make my writing better. That's not many, I can have it free, right? In the book I talk about who wants to know 967 ways to improve your Scrabble score. 967 ways to improve my Scrabble score? No, boring. Right? 3 top tips to treble your Scrabble tally? 3? Treble? Sure, I'm in. Right? That's easy. Make it easy to understand. Make it right for a very basic, SEO-friendly, imperative subject. The classics are great. These outperform anything else. You are not alone. Did you get it? If you can make people feel that, even if you don't write these words, people love community, right? Think about your churches, your Boy Scout troop, your schools, the PTA, whatever it is. People love to feel part of the community, that they're not alone. There are people like them thinking these same thoughts, having these same feelings. Bond with them. And your subject line and your copy will be much more engaging for them, and they will do what you want them to do. it's really quite sad, running the business that I do, how many people don't bother to put their own logo in their emails. You've got a great web design, right? You probably spend what is probably a small fortune for you on your website design. You've got a nice, elegant theme from Thesis or Genesis, whatever it is, right? And you plonk the email subscription form in the corner, you get a checkbox, and you walk away from it. Whose logo is going in that mailing? It's not yours. Branding extends to the mini websites that are your emails. Don't neglect them. And I'm not necessarily saying it should look exactly like your website, but for crying out loud, put your logo in there. Make it come from your business. And if your business, I'm Phil Hollins, I run Feedbacks, right? But my mails come from Feedbacks because that's if they come from Phil Hollins, who knows who the hell I am, right? Most of my clients don't. But they know they're with Feedbacks, so that's what the from address comes from, right? The second thing is, don't repeat your brand in both the from name and the subject line. Don't say, it's from Kitten Corner, here's the latest pet news. They know it's from Kitten Corner. You don't need to repeat that. You're wasting space. You've got 35 characters to get to the point. Don't be redundant. Be brutal on your editing in terms of how you're formatting the subject line, because you've got to hook people and get them to open it. Yeah, it's from them. I know who they are. That's interesting. Click. If you're redundant, the good stuff's going off on the right, and you're losing it when the column truncates the text. Yeah? Okay. Gmail it's free, and that's the best I can say about it. Because they will wreak havoc with your CSS, with your HTML, in order to present it right. It is god-awful. There's a post on my blog, and it's in the book too, about the things that they do. You have to code email really simple. If you pilot like it's 1999 with your email HTML, you're going to be in good shape. One of the things that Gmail is really good for, though, because it does murder HTML, is figuring out if you can get your email looking adequate in Gmail, you're good. Right? Gmail degrades email HTML really well. Okay? So, checking in Gmail, switch off images in the posts. Because now you're subscribing to your own blog, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So, get it in Gmail, switch off images. How does it look? Oops. Right? Use alt tags, use title tags. Because if images are off, which they are by default, right, and you're relying on images to get your message across, guess what? They're not showing up. I got a great email from Mandalay Bay, where the conference was last fall in Vegas, and I actually happened to read it with images off. The alt text was written exactly where I could read the alt text in one sentence across 3 or 4 images. It was beautifully crafted. They got their message across to me, even with no images displaying. The other thing is, images, if you've got a mobile audience, and according to MediaPost, the share of mobile email rose from 9% to 16% of what emails read on mobile devices in the last 6 months alone, right? Don't use 1 megabyte pictures of your family and friends in their desktop, right? Because it's going to take forever to load on the phone, right? If your images are taking too long to load, then the email isn't going to render and your subscribers are done. You have like 3 to 7 seconds to hook them once they open the mail. Make the images short, small, okay? Make sure they get downloaded really quickly. Same true if you've got a rural audience without a large amount of high-speed penetration. Okay? Small images, but yes, illustrate them, but keep them small to the point. Twitter avatars, by the way, are great for this usually. If you want to have it about you in an email, the Twitter photos usually pretty small, it's nicely cached somewhere, it'll work. But finally, if you use a professional graphic designer and you say, please do my email, and they'll say, great, and they'll do all this fancy stuff, it'll look awful. You have to tie them to the floor and say, use tables. And they'll go, ah. And they want to take a shower once they're done, but that is the best way to get emails to render properly, okay? HTML tables. HTML 2, 3, 4. Perfect. And don't do light text and dark backgrounds, even if you've got a golf site. Because when you don't have the background image displaying in Gmail, guess what you got? White text and a white background. I can't read it. Gmail's no good. Okay. And it's a migraine trigger, apparently. So, don't do that. Be nice to your readers. The one thing here, text image balance, is important for some content filters. Now, if we have time, I'll get to some content filters. If you have too much image, one of the things that, let's step back. One of the things that spammers figured out pretty quickly was that anti-spam tools can't read images. So if you put your message in an image and the image is displayed, very good. Right? So the way that the industry responded to that was, if you have too much image for text, then you may well be spam. So make sure, and small images helps, make sure you've got a good balance between the amount of text you have and images. If you're really image heavy in terms of what you're doing, okay, you run the risk of tripping a content filter. So you want to avoid that. Don't have a single massive image for your email. The kind of, the 20% off free shipping crowd will do a lot of image heavy stuff. Don't do that. It's really personal. Every time somebody leaves a list, it feels like, oh, what did I say? What did I do? Really? Was my last post that controversial? No, they've probably gone off and do something else. They've been with you for 2 years, whatever it is. But unsubscribe, send a message. And if you can, find out why they're leaving. If you see a lot of people leaving consistently, it might mean you're not being relevant anymore for your audience, you're wandering too far off topic to your core audience. It might mean you're mailing too often. I had a client who, I believe for content marketers and for bloggers, we should mail pretty much daily. Whenever there's a post, it should be got out that day to keep it timely. Okay? I had a client who had a lot of posts every day and was doing a weekly mailing. And I said, you know what, you should really do this daily. You've got great content, you should put it out every day. So we switched them over. And people started to leave. They were getting too many mailings. And it's because they were used to the regular Tuesday update. Once a week, that was their comfort factor. So you know what? 3 days later, we switched right back to weekly. Went, oops, sorry. The messaging was clear from the unsubscribed behavior. People were not comfortable with hearing that often on that particular list. Okay. And there are multiple list strategies we'll get to if there's time, if I talk quickly enough, where we can fix that. You may be mailing too little. If you mail once a month or once a quarter, corporates do this. Right? You have that dreaded, oh, it's quarter end, damn, I've got to get the newsletter out. Right? 3 months between mailings is too long. People have forgotten about you. So if you're not mailing enough, people go, oh yeah, those guys, oh, done that. Click, unsubscribe. So there's value in actually making sure that you're in front of them. If you don't have content more than once every month or 3 months, set up an autoresponder that keeps you and your organization in front of the subscriber, maybe doing a weekly mailing of greatest hits, survey, something like that. So they're expecting a mail from you and they're still comfortable being on that list before you get your content blast every 1 or 3 months. Okay? Try and get it down to weekly, but if you're not mailing enough, you'll lose people. You see high complaint rates if you mail too little. Okay? If you mail too fast, you've got to really back off quickly. If you find people leaving because of too frequent mailings, it takes a long time to recover and have people engage with you again if they feel like being abused or bombarded. So you know, be careful. For content marketers, for bloggers, it's usually not a problem. I get phone calls and emails when people miss their money sending on update. But where was it? I didn't get it today. Oh my God, sorry. It's really, so it's nice to know that actually the content is wanted and people miss it when they don't get it. So that's what you should be striving for, that's that commitment.